In May 2020, four women from the University Women of Flagler started a discussion group to discuss race and how race has impacted their perceptions as they've grown up and lived now. The group is called SIS, S-I-S, which stands for Seeking Insights for Solutions. I'm Brian McMillan, your host, executive editor of the Palm Coast Observer, and I have on Zoom Bettie Eubanks, Gina Barclay-McLaughlin, Trish LeNet, and Joanne Mason. These are the four women who have started this group, and it has grown to the point, at one point they reported that they had 41 people in the group talking about race and how they've kind of grown up with understanding race and trying to seek understanding between each other. So I'd like to hear a little bit from each of you four. Maybe we can start with Bettie and talk about why you wanted to be part of this group and what you've learned from it so far.
We wanted to start the group because of the climate of what was going on with shootings, killings of Black men and now women in the press. We felt that there was a lack of dialogue, an understanding across race lines. There were four of us, 2 African American, 2 Caucasian. We met to understand conversations that would help all of us understand one another better. And so that was the beginning. Very difficult to not know another person and then start forming opinions. When you know people and when you can sit across the room from them or face to face, we find we have many, many things in common. And so it was the beginning of a dialogue, sister to sister, some sisters from another mother, but nevertheless, we're sisters.
Very good. Thank you very much. Gina, would you like to add to that?
This is an activity that we use to get to know each other through interviews with pairs. And I used it when I was a professor at the University of Tennessee with my students, getting to know each other. And so here we had a group of retirees. And for me, it was fascinating to be able to hear perspectives from an older generation, top of the generation. For me, it was important to just kind of compare the perspectives of how they saw their experiences growing up, and doing it across race. And so it was pretty exciting to me to just listen to new perspectives.
How do you think, you said you did this with students, were these conversations surprising to you compared to how you felt like perceptions of race were among college-age people?
For me, it was interesting to compare this top of the generation and the earlier generation. They're undergraduates and graduate students. I was really surprised to see that we haven't changed very much in our society. That there were so many simulators and experiences still.
Really?
So for me, I was looking forward to seeing progress.
Yeah. So do you feel like there has been progress or has not, based on these kind of interviews with different generations?
I feel we're still in the same place.
Really?
There's some improvements, but in terms of equality, I'm disappointed.
Yeah. So let's hear from Trish LeNet. So a lot of, I think probably a lot of white people feel a little uncomfortable having these kind of conversations about race. What motivated you to be part of this group, and what do you think you've learned from it?
Oh my gosh, how often do we actually have a chance to sit down with a person of another race? And race is in quotes because it is a social construct, it is not biological, we are all part of the human race. We don't often have that chance to sit down and really talk about the things that our experiences in our lives. And for me, this was just an incredible opportunity. And we asked each other a set of questions. And the questions had to do with, how we were, where we were raised, our neighborhoods, our school experience and education, how conversations we may have had about race with our family or friends as we were growing up, later on in our career, our experiences throughout our lives, and how race has impacted those experiences. And I think as we women gathered, more women came into the group and did these interracial conversations, these cross-race conversations. And we saw these patterns that for most of the white women, for example, they grew up in a bubble, never having really even talked about race. Maybe their parents never mentioned it. And many of them never even met a Black person, an African American, until they went to college. And then and so for many white people, we go through life, we don't necessarily have to interact with people of another race because we are mainly in a white world. We're a majority white country. We don't have to. Whereas the Black women every day had to navigate in a white world, usually controlled the schools, the health, housing, all of that. And so it was a very different experience that we had. And for me, I really gained so much, not only with the person that I interviewed with, but then we shared our interview results with the rest of the group. So we all gained the perspectives. And it has been just a fantastic experience. And as Betty said, we realized that we had a lot of similarities in spite of our differences, but I don't think we as white people appreciate the difficulties of being Black in a mainly white world.
Joanne Mason is also zooming in from New Jersey. So Joanne, can you add to this? Maybe what was something surprising that you learned from your interviews participating in the group so far?
Well, through the interviews, it was for me as a white woman, I thought I understood before the Black issues. And the truth is I didn't. I didn't truly understand the scope. And when Gina has said before that she was frustrated because not much has changed, and I happen to agree with her 100%. We are talking about it more. I think I watch my grandchildren, and they are integrated more into society. It's easier to talk about Black-white issues, and so that has changed. But for the sense of our whole entire society, it's still people continue to be judged on the color of their skin. And I know that when I speak to others and they don't get it, I am now very frustrated because I don't know how much more clearly it has to be shown. How many more Black people have to be arrested? How many Black men and women have to be killed before people realize it has got to stop? This holding on to white power doesn't make sense when we live in a world that is now equally divided. So I am very passionate. I feel that I have learned a tremendous amount through all the research, the books, the articles, the sharing of stories, to understand better what it's like, especially from the women, what it's like to be a Black woman and have children compared to myself who lives in white skin, and know that that is a privilege that I never realized before.
Betty, can you tell me an example? We've heard from more than one person that it's kind of, you don't realize what it's like. Can you kind of help explain at all? Have you seen, what evidence have you seen, or how have you felt some kind of racist pressure, if any, living right here, in Palm Coast? Maybe an unexpected way that people may not realize or something. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And so let's just talk about a conversation that each of us as mothers of Black children have to have with our teenagers as they leave the house. If they're driving a car, you've got to talk about if you get stopped by a policeman, you've got to put your hands on the dashboard. You've got to say, yes, sir. You do not ask questions. You only answer questions. That's here in Palm Coast, and that's all over the country. As a woman and a mother, that's the kind of thing you explained to your children 50 years ago, and you are now still explaining to your grandchildren. In terms of housing, yes, there are places here in Palm Coast where there is prejudice when a person attempts to rent an apartment. I've not heard those specific myself, but I have heard from other people that still exists. We are looking at those things that existed all of our lives, and they have not changed. I grew up in New Jersey, and I was not privileged to all of the things that Black people encountered in the South. And I'm encountering them in Florida because I consider this now to be the South. And what are they? Language, conversations, people looking at you when you speak and then saying unnatural things about the way other people speak and the way I might speak.
Can you explain what you mean by that? What do you mean by language and commenting on how you speak?
I speak TD English. I grew up in Newark, and that's where the TD industry started. My father went to the elocution lessons, and I accompanied. So I speak that kind of language. I don't have a New Jersey accent. I have a TV English accent. It's funny, but it exists.
And people are surprised by that, or what do you mean?
When people speak here, they're expecting to hear Black people speak differently. And so I've had white people say to me, well, you don't sound Black. What does that mean?
Gina, do you have children, Gina?
I didn't bring any in the world, but I have children.
Have you ever had to have a talk? Have you ever had to have a talk like Betty was describing with anybody? About putting your hands on the steering wheel and things like that? Have you ever had to have that kind of a talk with somebody?
I've had to really, I'm the eldest of 13. And so I was kind of like the third parent. And I really had to prepare my siblings on how to exist in the world. So at an early age, I understood how we needed to protect ourselves. And it's just been a part of my life with all the children I've been involved in my family. I have 45 first cousins. So, just talking to kids and preparing them so that they could be protected was very, very important. And as a teacher, I had to help students understand how they would exist. Chicago, where I grew up, even though I'm an immigrant, Chicago, you had to give that understanding to young children. As a teacher, just prepare them so that they wouldn't get in trouble. And when I say in trouble, I mean die, so that they could live, so that they could not be harmed. And that's pretty painful to me. It was painful back then, and it's still painful.
That's always been one of the starkest kind of examples that I've heard, talking to other people as well, about that having that talk, that's just a reality in Black families and Black parents, grandparents. You have to have that talk. I've heard that many times from other people as well. So it's interesting that Betty brought that up. Could you tell me what can people do to fight racism, Gina?
What? That's a powerful question. Fighting has been just a part of my life. So it's like being prepared, being prepared. My mother used to say to us as children, a smile will take you around the world. So I smile a lot, People tease me because I'm always smiling. But she said, a smile will take you around the world. People will gravitate towards you. They'll help you. I found out a smile does not necessarily work all the time. It is a wonderful thing to do, to show yourself friendly, as my mother would say. But if you don't get the response, I live in a community here in Florida. Only one neighbor speaks to me. Only one. And they're wonderful. We don't have but a few Black people in my block. And I smile and wave. And it's amazing how people avert gaze, They find a way not to approach you face to face. My husband, he waves and yells, hello. I said, good morning. So just starting your day, you have to think about.
So let's go back to Trish then. How did you feel when you saw the group grow? I mean, I saw that it had grown from you 4 to 41 people at one point. Do you know how big it is now, and how did you feel as it grew?
Well, we rapidly, within the 2 years that we've been together as a group, we rapidly began to grow. Obviously, people are interested in this and in this issue, and they want to talk about it. We had 41, and then 2 of the women were not able to attend our meetings, and they were later members. And it's not because they weren't interested. They just felt that because they were time schedule, they weren't able to be fully members. So they decided that they needed to drop out. And it's not that they are not with us in spirit, but they just couldn't continue. But we have 39 members now, and it's an awesome membership. The women are just incredible. We can count on each other for support. And the wonderful thing is that we are equally Black and white. And I just think that is a tremendous advantage, because we always can then bounce ideas off one another, make sure that what we're saying, that we white women, what we're saying is true, or how can I say, not that we are moving in the right direction, and that we're understanding the Black perspective at all times. And I've learned comments that I've made myself, that have, as Gina used to say, they pinched her a little. If I would make a comment about, I forget now, but I'm more aware of making sure that what I say is not offensive. And it's not that we need to tread on eggshells, but it's just really important to have that feedback from them so that we understand the implications of what we are saying. And so that's, I don't know if I answered that question.
Yeah, very good. Let's talk for a second about this video that you guys have made. And Joanne was telling me that it was presented to a group of people. Do you know how people can watch that video in the future? Sort of a presentation of your group?
Trish, you need to answer that one, sweetie.
So, yeah.
Well, we have started to present to people, to groups in Palm Coast. We presented at the Palm Coast Historical Society. They advertised our presentation, and we got a nice group of about 40 people, almost equally black and white. They were wonderful hosts for us in their museum in Palm Coast in Holland Park. And oh, I'm sorry, but they're blowing leaves outside. And then just the other day at the African American Cultural Center, along with Surge and the NAACP, we also presented, and that group was 100, the audience was over 100, 110 perhaps. And it was, we figured 1/3 white, 2/3 black, and there were so many people who wanted to speak. So that's how we're getting out his message right now. And let me go and ask him to not blow the leaves right outside my door.
That's okay. We actually have to wrap up anyway, so that's okay. But thank you so much for sharing that perspective, Trish. I really appreciate it. Joanne, do you have a final comment before we go back to Gina?
Certainly. I would just say that the original goal that we had from this was to learn more about each other. And then it spread on. And then we knew that one of the goals we had to do was to help educate others from our learnings. And I think what Trish mentioned about the video presentations, we have about 6 more coming up. And the groups, and so we've met the goal that we had hoped to do, was to help not only learn ourselves, but then to help others understand better. And it really had, the question you had asked before, Brian, was excellent. Give an example. And so we're able to now give examples of the life that a black person lives compared to a white person. And truly that's been, so after 2 years of this, we continue to teach, we continue to learn, and continue to educate others in the hope of gaining equality for all.
Very good. Thank you, Joanne.
Beautifully said, Joanne.
Right.
So, Gina, I want you to have the last word, but a quick question for you. Do you, if somebody, if a friend of yours said, a white friend said, can you tell me if anything I say sounds racist to you? Because I want to fix that. What would be your response?
My next door neighbor, who's like family to me, said to me, I don't see color. It doesn't bother me. Your color doesn't bother me. I don't see color. And I said, is there something wrong with me that you don't want to acknowledge my color? Because I think I'm pretty beautiful. And she said, oh, no, I didn't mean it in that manner. And so that started a conversation with us about why I didn't feel comfortable with her not looking at my beauty. So these are ways that we can have conversation and have discussion and not feel uncomfortable with honesty, and I think that's so important to really kind of help people to grow. And for me to feel comfortable with being pretty honest about conversations that are difficult. And that's what I love about this book. I love that we've gotten to know each other. We can talk in honest, open ways, and we can all grow from the experience. It's like a family. I really feel that I've connected with people in ways that are very much like my natural family. And that's pretty exciting to me because we're growing with each other. They can say what they need to say. I can say what I need to say to deepen our understanding.
Well, you said you're like family, and it's appropriate that the group is called SIS. I think you guys seem like sisters, which is really a cool thing. Seeking Insights for Solutions, a group of the University Women of Flagler. Thank you for joining me, and I hope everyone
Thank you,
got something
Brian.
out of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having us. We were so happy to talk with you today.
Likewise, and thank you for joining us on Observations.